Okay. Can everyone hear me? Welcome. This is Kate Meredith, and you are joining the Bicycle Commuting Basics webinar with Doug Shidell. Very glad that you could join us today. So I'm Director of Outreach with Commuter Services, and we work with employers and commuters to encourage the increased use of sustainable transportation. And before I introduce our panelists, Doug Shidell, I want to share some housekeeping notes and updates. Please submit questions throughout the presentation. We will field those at the end. We are recording today's presentation, so it will be available, and we will send a link to all attendees and those who could not attend as well. Commuter Services offers free bike commuting resources, including bike trail construction updates. There's a lot of construction and closures and detours happening now, so we have all the latest on that. We do route planning links, and we have the Hennepin County Bike Map available for free to anyone who's interested. The 2020 map is available very soon. We should have it by the end of June, so if you're interested in that, please go to our commute assistant on our website and you can request the map and all of our other bike commuting resources. If you don't already subscribe to our monthly newsletter, we send it out in the beginning of the month. Lots of great information about construction and bike information and updates and everything commuting related. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter on our homepage of our website. And as you can see, our website is 494corridor.org. So Bike to Work Week is launching next week, June 15th through the 19th. We have fun stuff going on. You can enter to win a swag bag that has a customized One Less Car bike jersey and a $50 gift card to a bike shop of your choice, plus lots of other great bike related goodies. You can enter the Bike to Work Week pledge by going to the Commuter Challenge pledge form on our website. And again, it's 494corridor.org. So please do that. We'd love to have you participate if you can. And if you can't, we're just about encouraging, giving you information. That's what this webinar is all about, to get you prepared to bike to work. So whether you do it next week or you do it anytime this year, that's what this is about. We're just getting things launched today. So I'm going to introduce our presenter, Doug Shidell. Doug is a longtime bike commuter who has taught bike to work classes since 2005. Doug publishes the Twin Cities Bike Map, and it's in print and digital versions. And he has numerous newspaper and magazine articles to his credit. His website is bikeeverywhere.com, and he's on Facebook as well, and it's Bike Everywhere. So very, very pleased to have Doug here. Thank you so much, Doug, and I will let you start the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna put my screen up. So first off, I want to say thanks, Kate, for hosting this, and thanks to everybody for showing up and letting me get into your virtual worlds here. Before we get started on the actual bike commuting stuff, I want to mention a little bit about riding your bike during COVID-19. In a word, it's safe. Even when the state was shutting down all other services, it was saying get outside, ride your bike, do walking. So it's okay to ride your bike during this time, and it's even okay to ride without a mask. Now, there's no downside to wearing a mask, so if you want to, just go ahead, put one on. I would recommend, however, if at the end of your ride, you're going either into an enclosed area to park your bike, or you're in an area where there are a lot of people, you might want to put your mask on just before you get into that space. Otherwise, you're generally pretty safe outdoors. The droplets that carry virus are dispersed pretty quickly, and you shouldn't have to worry too much about getting infected. The next thing I want to mention is that this is not an inspirational talk. I'm not going to try to talk you into bicycle commuting. I'm assuming that you have an interest already, and that's why you're here. So I'm going to just get into the nuts and bolts of it. And the main goal here is to show you how to do bike commuting in a way that you enjoy. My experience is that people start bicycle commuting for a lot of different reasons, but they continue bicycling if they enjoy it. So let's try to make this an enjoyable thing, and we're going to work on that right away. Finally, part of that being an enjoyable ride is that you're not doing an all or nothing here. You don't have to sell your car. You don't have to ride in the rain. You don't have to ride after dark, and you don't have to ride in the winter. I suggest starting at a fair weather commuter, and then as you get more experience, you can expand the definition of fair weather. But always, you want to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to keep going. So now let's get into actual bike commuting. Oops, 1 second here. All right, so what's the best bike for commuting? The best bike is the one you own. You could spend easily the whole season reading all the opinions of various people who tell you what's the perfect way to ride a bicycle, or what's the perfect bicycle to take on your bike commute. The best bike is the one you own because you can get started. You can get riding right away, and you can get experience. That experience is going to make the difference for you, because no matter what the opinionated people say online, what works for you is the best bike. If you decide as you've been riding that you need to tweak something on the bike, go to your bike shop and get them to take care of that for you. And if you find that eventually you just really do want to buy a new bike, then go ahead, buy a bike. You'll be far more experienced, and you'll be a better consumer. You'll know what bike you want. Everybody who rides a bike to work has to carry something. It could be just a lunch. It could be your laptop or some office papers. It could be something like tools of the trade. So you got to carry that stuff on your bike or on you. And that's the two different options. So here's the first option, carrying the gear on the bike. The good news is all the weight is off your body and it's on the bike. You just pedal the bike, you let the bike take care of carrying the load. The downside is that those bags that you see on the backs of the bikes, they have to be either removed from the bike or they have to be emptied in order to get your stuff into your office. And that's part of what you want to figure out, is if you're going to be carrying the bag in the office, then you want a bag that's going to be easy to snap on and off your rack. So in all of this, whether you're going on the bike or your body, you want to consider how much space you need, whether you need a waterproof bag or just water resistant. And the reason there is that if you're going to be mostly riding in good weather and or your distance is short, a water resistant bag will be enough. But if you're going to be in some pretty heavy duty rain or riding a long time, then you want something waterproof. The bike carrying gear on your body is very flexible. So you just hop off the bike and you take all your gear, comes in with you to the store or work, wherever you're going. The downside is that you got that extra weight on your shoulders and your arms. It can make you sweaty in the summer, although some of the bags are designed for pretty good ventilation, and it might not feel comfortable. So there is no right answer. I've done both and I've enjoyed both. And I'm not going to recommend one, because I think that's really up to you to figure out what you want to do. The next thing is, what are you going to wear when you're riding your bike? Let's start with the assumption that you're going to ride in good weather. We'll get to rain gear in a second, but right now we're going to start with fair weather. And then what will determine what you ride is the distance to work, and then your own personal style and preferences. The distance to work is quite important. If you're only going 1 to 3 miles in any direction, you need no special gear at all. You can wear your business clothing, you can wear jeans, you can wear sneakers. Anything you want to wear is basically going to work, because you're only on the bike for 10 or 15 minutes at a time. So you're not going to have too many problems. As the distances get longer, you start getting into potentially uncomfortable spots on your body, where your body contacts the bike. So this is when you start looking at things that could take away some of those uncomfortable parts. So one of the main ones is shoes. And when you're pedaling, A soft shoes, let's say you've got flip-flops or soft sneakers or something like that, that shoe will flex on the back of your pedal, and right at that spot where it flexes is where you're going to feel a little extra pain in your foot. If you start experiencing that, one of the easiest things you can do, and it requires no special gear, is just get a hard-soled shoe and use that when you're riding. It spreads out that weight, it spreads out the pressure, and it takes it off your body. There are other parts where you're in contact with the bike. Cycling shorts often have they'll have padding on them, or you'll have padded liners that you can put under regular shorts. You might find that if you're wearing jeans, for instance, or anything with a big seam, it can get uncomfortable riding that. This is all stuff that because you're a little longer, you're riding a little longer, a little more distance and time on the bike, you might start feeling these things. In the picture on this slide, you'll see that the woman is also wearing cycling gloves. That's another option. None of this is required. It's just that if you start feeling a little uncomfortable, then be aware that you can find things to make it more comfortable, and you can get to a bike shop or something that can help you out. When you're getting the longer distances, that's when the specialty bicycle gear starts coming in handy. As you can see, the gloves on the rider, he's also got special cycling shoes, he's got shorts, he's wearing Lycra to wick moisture away. Again, none of this is critical. It's just that if you're starting to feel a little uncomfortable and you're riding longer distances, look at some of this clothing as an option to keep you more comfortable on the bike. Okay, so after the fair weather, you get into the ugly weather. Riding in the rain is really not bad if everything is ready for it, but nobody has to ride in the rain. You can always go back to your other mode of transportation when it's raining. But if you choose to ride in the rain, here are some things to consider. The first one is dressing the bike. Now the bike, the fenders on this bike are not made to keep you dry. Rain still comes down from above and it's still going to get you wet. But what the fenders do is they keep the road grit off you. So you don't get that stripe up your back because of the back fender. And the front fender keeps rain or road grit from flying up in front of you. Now, in this particular example, if you take a look right here at the fender, I would like to see that a little bit longer. Have a mud flap there, and the point there is that it keeps the mud off your shoes, it keeps the mud off the chain and your whole gear system. So that's the only recommendation I'd have here as far as the actual protection that you get from the fenders. Now you do want to have lights, you do want to have reflectors, both headlight and taillight reflectors, because all of that stuff is going to make you more visible in the rain. The next step is what do you wear? How do you make yourself more comfortable? The poncho in the top picture is not a popular way anymore. It used to be more popular than it is now. But the nice thing about it is that it allows air to flow up underneath you, but it still works. It's like an umbrella that you wear and gives you plenty of breathing. And this is important because if you're in warm weather and it's raining, you don't really want to be fully dressed in rain gear because you're going to get sweaty, and sweaty water, I think, is dirtier than rain. So I think you want to make sure that you don't get overdressed. As the temperature drops, if you start riding in cooler weather, then you want to go with a full gear. Personally, I agree. I think that venting is better than breathable fabric, but everybody can make that choice for themselves. Venting just gives you a nice airflow, and I think there's a lot of advantage to that. Helmets, that one's a pretty basic one. You've probably heard all the information about it. And while I'm talking about it, you're looking at that picture in the lower right-hand side. You'll never see that helmet. That is actually a prototype. It's working in Sweden right now. It's not in the United States, but it's an airbag for your head. And what you see when you're wearing it is a scarf-like device that's laying on your shoulders. It detects if you're falling. It inflates just like an airbag and then deflates right away. So this is just a demo. It's really not made. You'll never see somebody riding in something like that. You can see on the slide some of the things that you should know about helmets, but the main thing here is any helmet that's sold in the United States has to meet a safety standard. So you don't have to go with the most expensive. What you really want to do is the most comfortable. If it's not comfortable, you're going to leave it at home. You're going to hang it off your handlebar. You're not going to wear it. Locking your bike. What can I say here besides that? The main thing here is if you're locking your bike, you should not lock it in a dark alley or in a back area. It's not hiding it from anybody who really wants it. All it's doing is it's giving that potential thief a really good, secure, dark area to work on your bike. Park your bike out in the public. That's your best bet. Use a secure bolt or a good cable lock, and check with your employer. They might have a really good spot for you to park. Here's the meat of our presentation. How do you ride in traffic? Wouldn't it be great if we could all just ride a bike trail from home to work or home to the store, wherever we're going? We don't have that option here. We're not the Netherlands. So we have to learn how to ride in traffic. And all those big vehicles, that bus, the cars, trucks, all of that kind of stuff, can feel intimidating until you take into account some really basic things about bicycle or traffic in general. So here's the basics. If you act like a driver, you're being predictable. That means that whatever you do is something that other drivers are expecting from you. So if you signal your turns, you stop at lights, that kind of stuff, then the drivers are saying, oh, you know, I know what this guy's going to do because this is what everybody else does when they're driving. And this is the basics of all traffic control, whether it's turn signals on cars, brake lights, hand signals, stop signs, lane markings, all of that stuff. The main thing there is that it's trying to make you and everybody else do predictable things. And when you do, then everyone else knows how to react around you. As soon as something unpredictable happens, then you get tensions rising. You know, somebody weaves in front of you, or somebody stops suddenly or swerves or something like that. It raises tensions and like makes you upset. So you get horns honking and stuff, but even more dangerous, you can get into an accident. If you act like a vehicle and you do all of the things like you would as a driver, then you're doing predictable things and people are going to be able to do safe things around you as well. One thing first to mention is that taking the lane, what this means, if you look at basically the bicyclist on the upper side, he's not hugging the corner or the curb. What he's doing is he's sitting in the middle of the lane and he's making a signal for a turn. I'll get more into that more, but basically don't be afraid to take the lane and assert your right to be on the road. What I want to talk about next is at the bottom here, read the wheels. As a general policy, bicycle advocates have said, try to make eye contact with the driver, and that way you can make it a little bit safer. You know the driver's seeing you. The downside of that is that you got to read that driver's mind. You're not quite sure if the driver sees you or is looking past you for traffic. You're not quite sure if that nod from the driver is because they see you and are acknowledging you, or if that driver is actually listening to a podcast and agreeing to that. So there are things you got to think about there that are a little unsure. So my recommendation is read the car wheels. So if you look at the front wheels of the car, when you're any car approaching you, you can tell what that car is going to do because of basic physics. So if the wheels are going straight in this intersection, for instance, that car is not going to turn. As soon as those wheels start turning towards you, well, then you've got a potential problem. If the car is stopped, you're coming up to an intersection or a driveway or anything like that, and the car is at a dead stop, that means that the driver has his or her foot on the brake pedal. In order to move forward, the driver has to take the foot off the brake pedal, apply it to the accelerator, and overcome the mass of the car to get it moving forward. In that few seconds, when all of that happens, you can run past the car very safely and not have to worry about it. So if the car's at a dead stop, you're safe, no matter what the driver is thinking. If the car wheels are moving at all, then what that means is all of those other things that'll delay movement are gone, and the driver can move in front of you very quickly. I will never pass in front of a car where the wheels are moving, unless, of course, the car is a half a block back. But that's a real basic thing. And then you start adding a few more things, the direction the wheels are turning, whether the car is accelerating or not. All of those things tell you what the car is going to do, and you don't have to worry what the driver is thinking at that time. So make eye contact. Yeah, that's not going to hurt anything at all. But make sure you read the wheels. Keep your eyes on the front wheels of that car. Bicycle SHARROWS were really confusing when they were first introduced into the Twin Cities. What do I do with this? You know, is this a bike lane or is it a car lane? What's the point here? And why is that SHARROW so far out in the road? Bicycle SHARROWS are simply indicators. They say there's going to be a bicyclist on this road, and this is the spot that the bicyclist should be in. So this bicycle SHARROW on this road, it's a small residential street with parking on both sides. What does that mean? Well, it means that if you ride where that SHARROW is pointing you to ride, you're just to the right of the center line of the road. That keeps you away from the parked cars. You won't have somebody opening a door in front of you. It tells the motorists that if you're here, you're in the right spot, and they shouldn't be trying to honk or tell you to move to a different location. And it also helps you have a little bit more visibility, or at least awareness. If you look in this picture and you look at the car right here parked on the right side of the road, you can't quite tell if there's a parked driveway or something on the other side of that car. There's some trees here and stuff, and it's a little hard to tell. By being out in the middle of the road, you get to see that car a little sooner and have a little more time to react. These are real basic things that give you more time to be aware of where vehicles are and what's happening with them. So that's what a bicycle SHARROW does. Let's look at it in a little more detail. This picture is actually a really good one. If you look up here above the intersection, you'll see two white lines and it's a bicycle lane. Those solid white lines say no motorists belong here. This is your route. This is your place only. The only people who can cross are these guys who are in the parked cars. They can cross to get out into traffic. Now let's move down a little bit to right next to this car, and you'll see some dotted lines. Those dotted lines are saying a motorist is going to cross this bike lane and head out over here on this freewheeling right turn. So now the two of you are sharing the lane, so you got to be aware. And since you're on the bike lane and you're right about here, you could be in the blind spot of the motorist. That motorist might not see you in their mirror. So be aware of where the motorist is and where the mirror is, where you are in relation to him. And if necessary, just slow down, give that motorist either a chance to get through there or to go straight, and then you'll be safe. Once you get past that intersection, there's a nice little spot here that's kind of a resting spot if the lights are changed. But then look what happens when you get past the intersection. There's another bicycle SHARROW. Oh, I'm sorry. That bicycle SHARROW now says, okay, you no longer have a dedicated bike lane. You're now sharing the road with motorists. And because this lane is fairly wide, the SHARROW is a little bit more off to the right. It actually allows cars to come through pretty easily. But I get a sense here that the road is narrowing after the intersection. So the next SHARROW probably puts you right out there in the middle of the lane, and that's a safe spot to ride. Let's look at one more example. This is a complex intersection. We've got cars coming from this direction, or cars and bikes, and then it seems like the road here is offset. And then of course we got a crossing intersection. How do you get through that? If you follow the directions of the SHARROW, then they're saying this is your best way to get through. And this is done by traffic engineers. And it also tells motorists, if I'm here, I'm doing the right thing. But the dotted lines are saying motorists are going to be crossing. This is a cross street. People might be making left turns or a number of other things. So both of you have to be aware that you're sharing the space, but motorists are going to be aware that you are in the right location, even if intuitively they don't think that that's the case. So SHARROWS can be real good guides. They are not protection. They're just simply an indication of where's the safest place to ride. And they tell motorists there's supposed to be a bicyclist here, and let them share the road with you. The next step is if you don't have all of that help from the SHARROWS. How do you get through certain kinds of things? This is road position. The left turn is one of the most scary for bicyclists. How do you get from the lane coming from the bottom and then going to the left, turning left? Part one is act like a driver. So what did the driver do here? The driver is over in the middle lane next to the center line, waiting for traffic to clear, signaling, and then heading over to the middle lane right here. Now, as a bicyclist, if you're going to act like a driver, you've got to do the same thing. You get to the center line, you come around, and you go to the center, the lane in the center of the road until you have a chance to take a look over your shoulder and then move over to the right lane. So it's actually a very good maneuver, and it's very efficient maneuver. But for a lot of people, that's just really scary. You know, it's like, there's no way you're going to get me out there on that road. So here's alternative two. This is called a hook turn. And what you're doing is you're on the right side of the road, and you're going along the green line here, and you get over and stop right here. What you're doing now is you're just positioning yourself to go across the intersection when the light changes or traffic clears. So you aren't making that center line to center line turn. It gives you a little bit more comfort. It takes a little bit longer because you might be waiting for a light in order to change. The one thing you don't want to do is the white line here. Now this bicyclist is really causing trouble, doing something unpredictable. The bicyclist is starting at the right curb and cutting right in front, right across multiple lanes of traffic. This motorist probably didn't see the bicyclist because of the blind spot, and it's going to be a real panic situation for the motorist. There's going to be some horn honking, and only if you're lucky, the bicyclist will get through. But it's not something that you should do. Try the hook turn, get over here, wait for the light to turn, or do like a driver as I showed in the last slide. Here's another road position question. How do you get down the road and when the road's really narrow? So counterintuitive as it may sound, don't hug the curb. When you hug the curb, what happens is you limit your chance to get out of the way because the curb is right there. You can't swerve anywhere. You're in a bunch of debris and stuff. You're seeing road grates, you know, sewer drains, storm sewer drains, that kind of thing. But even more concerning, if you look down here on the lower lane, I'm sorry, let's take a look at what's going on here. This small car is going past the bicyclist, and there's actually a fair amount of space here. Not too bad. The road actually seems pretty comfortable to ride right here. But now look what happens when you get an SUV. Look where that mirror is in relation to the bicyclist. That mirror is sliding past your shoulder, very close. You're not going to feel comfortable with this, nor is the motorist going to feel comfortable with this. And then look at the truck. That mirror is actually overlapping the bicyclist. There's no way this truck is going to get past the motorist without going across the center line. And since there's a car coming from the other direction, that truck is probably going to try to squeeze between the center line and you. Unlikely that they're going to slow down and wait for everything to clear. Now let's look at the opposite thing where you take the lane, and I mentioned this a couple of slides ago. Here, this bicyclist, it seems really scary. You're right out there in the middle of traffic, but you're right in front of this motorist, so they're going to see you as opposed to being here where you're kind of in the blind spot of the motorist. You're also not getting anybody squeezing you off. So you are in a pretty safe position. This motorist has to wait, and there's no question about that. That motorist has to wait till these cars clear, and if the motorist wants to pass, they'll do it after the cars clear. They'll cross the center line, pass you, and go on. Now, the motorists might be irritated by this, yes, because they're trying to get to work. They're trying to get, you know, wherever they're going. That's okay, because your safety is more important than their convenience. So taking the lane, it's a legitimate thing. It's not something I'm just bringing up. This is actually promoted by bicycle and traffic engineers all the time. So get out there and look, you're not having all those mirrors coming right by you. You actually are going to feel safer when you're out there. So we've gone through some steps here, and one of the biggest problems that we face whenever we're trying to do bicycle commuting is how do you get started? You know, okay, you've looked looked up all of the information, you've read all this stuff, you've listened to seminars and that kind of stuff. But that step, that big step about getting out there and actually riding to work is a challenging one. I like to think of it as preparing for a play. You don't get the script for the play on Monday and then go and do a live play on Wednesday. What you do is you rehearse. You go through the little steps. You read the script, which is what you're doing now by listening to seminars and reading things online. And then you start practicing pieces of it, and you don't try to take on the whole thing. So what does that look like for bicycle commuting? Let's start, say, 3 weeks beforehand. Get your bike tuned up. Last thing you want is a flat tire, a squeaky chain, or brakes that don't work when you get out there on your commute. So get it taken care of. If it's DIY, then go, do it yourself. Look at all these things. You can see the check the following piece. Otherwise, take it to a bike shop. Let them take a look at it and really make sure everything's right. Make sure you get your key accessories in place. Do you have a helmet, a lock, panniers or backpack, and possibly a mirror? And one of the things to remember now is that even though your tires started inflating, fully inflated, every week they're going to lose a couple of pounds of air pressure. And the chain is going to start getting a little drier. And so the brakes are going to get a little more worn. So check these things on a regular basis. Just do a quick look, make sure everything's good, make sure you're not hearing squeaky chain, that kind of stuff. And your bike will be ready. Okay, we've eliminated one of those barriers. Now let's make arrangements at work. Are you going to need a locker, and are you going to shower? This is an issue if you're riding a long distance, or if it's really hot weather, or if you're in a hurry and you got to get to work fast and you get sweaty. So check with work. See if they've got lockers or showers at your workplace. Check about alternate facilities, such as a nearby fitness center or something. Next thing, where are you going to lock your bike? Now, some of the employers around here have indoor parking. Some of them have specified areas with a cage around it for security. Some just have racks out in front of the building. Make sure you know where they are, where these places are, and which of the racks or options you're going to pick as you go. Next thing is make a backup plan. So let's say that you've got a child in school and the school calls and says, she's sick and you should come and pick her up right away. What are you going to do if you've ridden your bike? So Uber is an option, transit's an option. What are some of the other things you can do? Get this stuff lined up ahead of time so that you're not doing the what ifs as you're trying to ride to work. Just try to get it all arranged ahead of time. The other thing to look at is maybe you just live too far from work to bike the whole distance. So some of the options include driving to a park and ride and then bicycling the rest of the way, taking a train or bus or something like that to get you part way, or you ride to the bus and then you get off again at the other end. So you can look at these options. If you have this stuff all laid out ahead of time, then you aren't worrying about it on your first day of commuting. Now, plan your bike route. The main thing here is don't pick the new route that you normally drive. The reason you drive that route is because it's good for cars. And if it's good for cars, it means there are other ones on there. There's other vehicles on that road. So it means that you've got a busy road. You're probably driving mostly on busy roads, and you don't want to be biking on those same roads. It's just not as comfortable, not as much fun. If it's not fun, you're not going to keep doing it. So try to find low traffic alternative streets. And you can check with fellow bike commuters. You can check with your bike shop. You can look at websites. You can look at the maps that are available. And Google even helps out. So although with Google, I would be careful, I would definitely check that route before doing it, because Google is using algorithms. It's not necessarily experience on the road itself. So check all of these things. And as Kate mentioned earlier, Commuter Services does offer route recommendations. So here's where you get into dress rehearsals. If you take your bike and ride to work on a weekend, and you make a mistake, let's say that you made a wrong turn, or you underestimated how long it's going to take to get there, or you just don't have the physical stamina to make it the whole way. You're doing this all at a time when you're not under stress. because you don't have to worry about being at work and catching that meeting that you're supposed to be at, that kind of thing. So if you take a day off or a weekend and you do a mock commute, so carry everything you need. And I've got the list of stuff there. The ones with the asterisks, well, maybe you can leave those at work and then you don't have to carry as much stuff. But if you take your bike and you ride it to work on the weekend, then, or on a day off, you have taken away one of the biggest barriers to riding, which is you've already done the ride. You've already done the route. And that helps. That helps a tremendous amount. But you want to do a few things with the ride. First off, time it. This is more than just riding time. What you also have to think about is locking up the bike, walking to the locker room, taking a shower, getting to your office. All of these things have to be factored in. When you drive, you simply step out of the car, press the remote, and walk into work. Bicycling is a little bit more involved at the end of the ride. If you don't take that into account, then you're not going to allow yourself enough time to get to work. So you've done the ride, you've timed it, you can now evaluate. So first off, can I do it? Am I going to be able to ride to work, do a full day's work of productivity and ride back home? That's a decision you have to make. There's not a right or wrong answer. It's just that if you don't make that decision, you could get into some trouble. Again, would it be better to take an alternate way for part of the route? Do you need to carry water? If it's a long ride and it's a hot day, you're going to get thirsty. Do you need a snack? And this one's an important one if you're on your way home as well as on your way in. If you eat a little bit of food, say 30 minutes before riding home, it's going to give you that little extra energy. You're not going to bonk. You're going to enjoy the ride more. And then how about carrying the gear? Do you have to change the way you do it? Do you have to add capacity? That kind of thing. By evaluating all of this, you make the adjustments before that big day, before you are under pressure to get to work on time. You also want to evaluate the route. If there's any part of that route that you wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I hate going across that intersection, or I hate the traffic on this road, or something like that, those things are barriers and they will wear on you. They will undermine your desire to ride to work. So if that route doesn't work, and if it doesn't work during rush hour, look at alternatives. And the alternative might not be the most direct route. It might add an extra half mile or mile to the route. That's worth considering, because if that extra distance makes you more comfortable riding and you enjoy it more, well, you're going to ride to work more often. So take all those things into account when you're doing your ride, and then that'll help you. Again, you'll enjoy the ride more, you'll ride more often. Now, with all of this stuff in mind, you want to know, what time do I have to leave home to get to work on time? And do you want to leave a little extra cushion, especially those first few times riding in? Do you want to take a little extra time, or leave a cushion, extra 10 minutes or something like that, in case something goes wrong? As bike commuting gets to be more routine, you kind of tighten up that cushion, just because you've already got most of the variables taken under control. Do the adjustments. So we've ridden in, and if it turns out that you've got to change your route, you got to change the way you carry your clothing, there's some other things that you got to adjust, go ahead and try it one more weekend. Go out and ride your bike to work another weekend. For one thing, you're going to find out it's amazing how much difference it is to do it the second time. It is so much easier. So you're just taking away barriers. Make those adjustments, reevaluate, and then when you're ready, then we go for the day before. So now there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. Noticing the calendar, you'll see that your first bike commute has actually 3 different options on it. This is just that whole anticipating problems thing. So if your first day of ride, you were planning to ride in on Monday, but on Friday, Friday before, your boss said, hey, by the way, we're going to have an early meeting. You're going to, I expect you in a half an hour earlier, an hour earlier than normal. Well, that's not going to be the day that you want to ride your bike into work. Also, if you wake up in the morning and there's thunderstorms going on, well, that's probably not the first thing you want to deal with when you're doing your bike ride. If you already plan another day or two, then this isn't a big adjustment. It's a little bit of a hassle because you really were ready to go, but it's not as big an adjustment as if you just weren't even thinking about the option to do another day. When you get in the day before, so let's say you're planning Friday, if possible, maybe you're planning on a Monday ride, and if possible, Friday, maybe you'll bring in a change of clothing, bring some toiletries to work, lighten your load a little bit. You may not want to bring a lunch in over the weekend, but you get the point. Try to take care of some of this stuff ahead of time. The night before, pack your lunch if you carry one, or just plan on eating takeout that day or something. Add an extra snack. I mentioned that earlier. Pack up your clothes, put that stuff in the panniers, put the panniers on the bike, fill your water bottle, put it on the bike. What you're trying to do is set it up so that when you get up in the morning, you've got the least amount of things to think about possible, because you're going to be nervous. This is a big day for you, and you're going to try to take care of things so that you don't worry about whether I forgot them or not. So, and the final thing down there on the bottom, change your alarm. If it's going to take you an extra 15 minutes to get to work, then you better set yourself up with a earlier wake up time, just to make sure that you get there in time. Okay, then the next step is the big day. Where do we go? When do you do it? Well, you got that all set up. Now you've already ridden to work a couple of times. You got everything packed up. You've taken away the barriers. So get up, eat a good breakfast. Remember, your fuel for this ride is not gasoline, it's food. So make sure you have food in you. Ride to work, celebrate. Commuter services would like to know that you did it, but the next thing is plan your next ride. Don't just stop now. So that's it. That's all I'm going to say for now. And what I'm going to do is go back to Kate. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and then she's going to take questions, and then I will see what I can do about answering them. Hi, Kate.
Hi, thank you. We have one question, and it's how long does it take for most people to feel comfortable biking to work?
Oh, that's a good question. I will admit I'm not an expert on this anymore because I've been biking to work for 40 years. And so I know at 40 years, you're definitely comfortable. I'm going to say, as I mentioned earlier, when you ride to work a couple of times before you actually start your normal commute, you will find an incredible improvement with each new trip into work. So you are actually already getting more comfortable by the time the first trip starts, by the time the first real bike commute starts. The other thing to keep in mind is that you need to ride regularly in order to keep current on it. So I've seen people who only ride every couple of weeks, and then every time they do it, it's a whole new ball game again because it's been so long since their last commute. So if you do 2 weeks of regular commuting, you're going to feel somewhat like a pro already. But if you only do a commute once a month or every couple of weeks or something, it's going to take you a long time to feel comfortable.
Thanks, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
Someone chatted in that for him, it's 1 year to be comfortable, 5 years to realize that you prefer it.
Very good. That's very good. Like I said, I'm not the pro anymore. I've been doing it for a long time, and obviously I very much enjoy it. I wouldn't have done it for the last 40 years if I hadn't.
We have another question. I've seen a lot of biking groups on social media. Are there any you think are really great?
Biking groups?
Yes.
You know, I have to admit here, I'm not a joiner, and so I don't really know the answer on that. If you're talking about chat groups, I have heard about, like, there are groups for, cycling after 50 and things like that, but I haven't been in them, and so I'm not going to be able to tell you which one's the best. I think that, again, and it probably doesn't even matter what I think, because I think if you're on this group for a couple of sessions and you can see what kind of responses and what kind of talk you're getting from people, it'll give you a pretty good indication whether this is a group you want to be part of. So I think that's going to have to be pretty personal.
Yeah, I agree. Commuter services is plugged into some of the city's advocacy groups, and one of them is Bloomington Bicycle Alliance. So they really, you can join their email list and their Facebook page, and they keep folks up to date on, you know, new bike paths that might be coming through Bloomington, or just other things that people can support or lend their comments to. So there's another question as well. Are there certain areas or neighborhoods you avoid because of lack of biker safety, and the opposite, safer areas?
I find there are communities that are not as bicycle friendly. So some of the suburbs have really limited bicycle facilities, and so your options for riding are narrowed down. Some of them just have bike trails along very busy roads, and it works. I see people on those trails, but personally, I don't find them as enjoyable because they're because of the traffic, and oftentimes the trails are not up to standard. They might not be wide enough. They might be old, you know, getting broken up, that kind of stuff. So I don't think I'm going to name those towns. I don't think that's a good idea, but just watch those things. And unfortunately, if you're riding to work or if you're riding to work and back, you don't really have the option to pick which community you're going to ride in. So you'll have to avoid that. I will say this, if you like trails, Three Rivers has some great trail systems in Hennepin County. And you will find some good trails in some of the other counties as well. Sometimes through parks, and sometimes in some other more rural, or not rural, but suburban residential areas. So those are some good options to ride for trails.
Great, thank you. Any other questions that people want to type in where we have time?
Mm-hmm. I did see somebody mentioning the Twin Cities Bike Club, and that's the biggest bike club in the area. As for recreational riders, it's not a race group, and they have a good reputation. They have levels of riding, which makes it easier for you to plug into a specific group. So C riders are going slower, B riders are the intermediate, and A riders are hammering along at a pretty good pace. So you can usually find a group that fits your needs, and they do a ton of social rides, although this year it's different because of the coronavirus. But in years when they aren't worried about that, they will have rides. They'll have 2 or 3 rides every night of the week, going out from different parts of the metro area.
Mm-hmm. Great. There's one question, and maybe this could be done online, but there could be other attendees that have the same route. He says, I commute from Anoka to Richfield, and the worst part of the ride is from 694 to downtown. Is there a better route than Riverside Trails and 2nd Avenue?
Oh, that was going to be my recommendation. It'd be interesting to know what the rider doesn't like about that route. I have ridden it. In fact, I just recently rode it, and I did not feel uncomfortable with it, but I'm curious about what it is that the rider finds uncomfortable. If you can get that response, I would like to hear it, actually.
Okay. And I can put you in contact with him after as well.
Sure.
Thanks. Any other questions? Any other? Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll end a little early. Anything, last thoughts, Doug?
The main thing is get out there and start practicing, get your stuff pulled together. And I really like the idea that we've got Bike to Work Week next week, but if you're not ready, just put it off, and get yourself completely ready. What I would not like to see is that you take off unprepared and you have a bad experience. Because if your first experience is bad, it's very unlikely you're going to have a second experience. So if you're not ready, don't do it yet. Take the time to figure it out, and then come back and try it a little bit later.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable. I think that's such an important part of what you talk about is the preparation. Because if it's a bad experience, then you don't want to do it again. And I was lucky that I had a coworker who my first time rode with me, and that made it a lot more comfortable for me to do it subsequently. So,
Yeah. You also had a great trail going into work.
right, I have a trail almost all the way, which isn't always
It's
bad.
not always an option. Yeah. Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're glad that you attended, and we hope that it helps you. Again, Bike to Work Week is next week, but it's just the start of the season for this year. We realize as people are transitioning slowly and probably part-time back to the work site, this could be helpful for people as they go back to the work site. So thanks again. Have a wonderful day. And again, we will have this recorded, and we'll send out the recording. All right. Bye-bye.